Hey guys, it's the Whale coming at you with almost like a Purrely discussion, where I really want to discuss the deck and kind of help some of the newer players, kind of go into Purrely, because I can tell that it is, well, when I started, it was a very kind of intricate deck. It wasn't just, oh my god, I have to get to big Noir, and how do I do that? You understand? So I'm going to try my best to kind of walk you through every single step of the deck, going through each piece of what makes the deck, and going through some couple of like recipes and stuff like that. I wanted to do a deck profile today on Purrely because I managed to top my locals today, a 27-man locals going 5 rounds, and I only dropped 1 game. But I decided to do something a little bit more because a lot of people at my locals were asking me about Purrely, and I know that the Purrely community is very strong out there and everything, and I just wanted something to kind of contribute to said community. Let's talk about the deck. So Purrely is a very extremely versatile deck. I think that you can run Purrely in almost any format at a solid tier 2 level. Obviously there's many different types of Purrely decks. I'm going to go into that as well. But Purrely actually just recently topped, not too long ago, a regional, and then before that the same guy topped another regional with Purrely. So I genuinely think the deck, if held properly, can be played in a very solid, strong event. Obviously all depending on the player and the hands that you draw, because the deck in itself is RNG. There's realistically no solid combos. It's just what you open up and what you can do with that hand. That's one of the reasons why I love this deck. So let's get started. I'm going to be using Dueling Book here for my examples, okay? But I have it on my phone, and what I want to talk about. So first things first, I want to talk about why Purrely. Let me open up the deck constructor, right? So this is the deck that I piloted today. And again, I will talk more in depth about it, and the deck recipes. I'll show you guys a couple, okay? But I want to talk about why Purrely. Okay, so Purrely, again, restating what I said at the beginning of the video, Purrely is an extremely versatile deck and usually can be played in most formats. I would say one of the only formats it probably couldn't be played in was maybe tier element format, to be completely fair with you. That deck was broken. But anyways, it could be played in most all formats. The deck is extremely versatile with multiple builds. The fact that Noir, the big Noir right here, is just ridiculous. In most case scenarios, in most formats, there's very few outs to this card, and if there is, a lot of people don't even run them. You understand? So I genuinely think that this deck is, again, very playable for formats, especially if you just kind of want to pick up a cheap deck to learn, or you just have enough time to invest in one deck, or money to invest in one deck. Purrely, honestly, I would say is top tier. You can make this deck probably for a solid 20 bucks, maybe even less, with all the reprints. So yeah. Number 2, again, it is a good investment, not only as a deck, okay, not only as a deck. With the rarity collection too, these cards are pennies. These cards are pennies. I did the math before I started the video, and on TCG, I think the entire core of the deck, all the Purrely stuff, will probably run you around 11 to 12 bucks. Okay. So I genuinely think that with this, that's already half your deck, and you can just kind of throw in either hand traps or board breakers depending on your playstyle as a player. So I think that the deck is a fantastic investment. Again, I think that Purrely can be played seriously in any format. Not only that, I think that if you genuinely want to get good at the game as a player, critical knowledge of Yu-Gi-Oh!, I think Purrely is a fantastic deck to pick up, genuinely speaking, because every game that I ever lose on Purrely, I see like a silver line where it's winnable, and the only reason I lose is either RNG, because maybe I didn't hit the card I needed to hit, or my own misplay as a player, okay? Or the third one is the opponent just opened nuts. You know what I mean? That's also always a thing, but it's realistically always the second one, which is me as a player. I misplayed. I should have used my resources like this instead of like this. I tunneled too hard into making a big Noir that I actually forgot that I could have cracked the board without making Noir and have like a 5 material Zeus. You understand? So these are the things that I feel like Purrely does to the player. Every time I lose, I feel like this is the deck I get saltiest with, you know, at locals, because every single time it is me as a player. I was facing the deck, the duel that I actually threw today that I lost, that I dropped, was against Prime-Eye Blue Eyes, and I could have won. Even the enemy player, right, the opponent at the end of the duel was like, why, like, you could have done this, like, I know you could have done it, why didn't you? And it was because I got too greedy. It was because I got too greedy and I thought I was gonna hit off of the white cat, and that just threw my entire play out. You understand? Because I was expecting to make a very big Noir, and I just needed the one more quick play spell, which I didn't end up hitting. Okay, so again, it improved me as a player. This deck, I feel like if you're not playing like a tier 1 deck, I feel like you very much have to manage your resources. Because especially with this deck, where it mostly plays with your hand, right? The actual engine of the deck is your hand. So you go first, you have 5 cards to play with. You go second, you have 6 cards to play with. Out of those 6 cards, you have to try to find a way to stop your opponent from interrupting you, or you have to break the board. So assuming that that's 1 card already thrown away, because you have to break the board with like Dark Ruler No More or an Ultimate Slayer, you have 4 cards to play with, and you have to do the most with those 4 cards. Again, all of these things will really improve your critical thinking as a Yu-Gi-Oh player, and especially it will improve your way of becoming better as a Purrely player. Now, one thing that I personally use, a lot of players ask me, especially today at my locals, they were like, oh, how did you, like, this deck is so confusing, right? Like, I picked up Purrely for like a week and I ended up dropping it because the deck is really hard to get going. That's true. Ladies and gentlemen, the only way to make this deck work, and I hate to say it, but it's literally put in the time. Put in the time, put in the hours, the grind into it. Go on Dueling Book, lose a bunch of rating, you know, and just, you start seeing the lines. That's my first advice with this deck. Keep in mind, I still haven't talked about the actual deck itself, like the monsters, the spells. I'll go into that. But I'm talking about the deck as a whole. Second thing that you can do, go look at knowledgeable players. So, there's a ton of knowledgeable players on YouTube. Dinken Fam, you know, obviously he went to Lorcana, but some of his Purrely stuff still is relevant to this day. And of course, there's other players that are way better than me at Purrely. But I see a lot of the Witness replays. So the Witness is a fantastic Dueling Book player. I don't know him in real life. I don't know if he plays in real life, but he only plays Purrely. He's been playing Purrely for about 2 years. And I look at all his replays, and sometimes I look and I'm like, I probably would not be able to have seen that line. And he comes back from impossible odds because of this deck. Again, because of RNG, or because the way he built his deck. This deck can be built in any way, shape, or form that the player themselves needs it to perform at. So again, that goes over to my second point. Okay, my third point is, again, more about the deck building aspects. There is a lot of skill expression. There is a lot of skill expression, a lot of player expression in this deck. The only thing that you realistically need in this deck are up to here. Okay, up to here, which is 21 cards. 21 cards. Unless you're playing, you know, terraforming, then 22 cards, right? So you only realistically need 21 cards. Out of those 21 cards, everything else you see here, from Brow to Call by the Grave, is all player's choice. You can literally run a board breaker build. As you can see, that's the build I'm running, right? You can run a hand trap build. I know that there's some Purrely players that they see board breakers and they scoff at it. They're like, ah, okay. Unfortunately, me as a Purrely player, not the best Purrely player, but this is also coming from the Purrely player that topped the regional not too long ago, or I don't know if it was like a YCS or something like that. It was a YCS or a regional. I should have done that research before I started this video, but that player even agreed board breakers is the way to go with Purrely. Why? So Purrely, unfortunately, with hand traps, we do not have Sleepy to 3. Sleepy being this spell card right here that lets us replenish our hand. Basically our draw 6, right? Our draw 6. I'll go into it a little later. So it's very difficult to replenish our hand. And when we do replenish our hand, it is during the opponent's turn, which makes it unplayable for us, right? Because we have to activate our spells to start playing on our turn. Okay, yes, they're quick play spells. We can activate it during our opponent's turn, yes, 100%. But for us to actually do stuff, it needs to be during our turn. So I think Purrely, in terms of board breaker build, is superior. Now, a lot of people ask me, okay, Puzzle, you're playing board breaker, so that means you're going second, right? And trying to break the board. No, that's incorrect. Purrely is one of the few decks that, even though you're playing board breaker, a heavy board breaker package, you can still go first as Purrely, and I always choose to go first. Why? Because these cards are just empty cards if you're going first, right? Like Lightning Storm, right? I don't need Lightning Storm turn 0 if I'm going first as a player, so I can just discard it. It's discard fodder. Okay, Dark Ruler no more, Ultimate Slayer, right? I try my best to keep the most reactive ones like Dark Ruler and Ultimate Slayer if possible, but if not, I buy, you know, if I can make my big Noir or set up a really good board, I'm gonna end up doing that. And going second, you have these board breakers that are really good against the meta. Dark Ruler no more is always really good. Ultimate Slayer, you know, your extra deck, you know, it's not as tight as most, so you can run a couple of really good cards that Ultimate Slayer is a good target, as well as, you know, Talents is always fantastic. It's basically a hand trap format, though I have seen some cards now go with board breakers, like, you know, Book of Moon, Book of Eclipse, you know, especially Odeon deck, or as like the YCS calls it, what is it, Tomb Keepers or something. Oh, by the way, as of this recording, the ban list is still not out yet, so I am recording this April 5th of 2025, so they said that a ban list was gonna happen tomorrow, so I highly doubt that anything Purrely is getting touched, to be completely honest with you. And if it is, you add that in there. Okay, if it's 3 Delicious or 3 Sleepy, you add that in there. So that being said, I think that the deck has a lot of skill expression. I believe the board breaker build is the only build right now worth a damn. The hand trap build, you need a minimum of like 2 to 3 hand traps to stop any deck. So assuming, right, I have 5 cards in hand, right, and I'm playing against a Blue Eyes player, right? I need at least 2 hand traps, meaning that I have 3 cards in hand. One of them is a quick play spell. That's fantastic. But then I'm left with only 2 cards in hand because I have to discard a random one. So my opponent better not stop me, because if my opponent have a hand trap by themselves, I basically lose the game. You understand? So I just feel like board breakers are just the way to go with Purrely, at least right now. But again, it's all interchangeable, and if you prefer the hand trap format, there's also really good lists with hand trap formats. In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys my board breaker deck that I topped today at locals, and I'm going to also show you guys a sample hand trap format that I just kind of made on the fly. The deck is interchangeable. Okay, so that is the deck as a whole. Okay, the deck as a whole. Now let's talk about monsters. Just monsters. So we're not talking about the extra deck at the moment, right? The extra deck is going to be its own separate part. So let's talk about monsters. Purrely only has access to 2 main deckable monsters. We have Purrely, right? The white cat, as most people call it, or Purrely, or Purrely, or just the the black cat. Okay, so we're going to talk very in depth on these 2. So me as a player, you guys see a lot of really weird ratios. We usually run 2 of the white cat and 2 of the black cat, but there's some players like the Witness, like the gentleman that topped the regional / YCS. I'm saying both because I'm not entirely too sure, don't remember it. He ran 3 white cats, but you can totally get by with just 2 if you manage your resource properly. Honestly, I don't think I've ever needed 3, though I have played with 3, and I love 3. I love 3 white cat. Let's go on to the effects. So the white cat is a level 1. They're all level 1 monsters. So it states, if this card is normal or special summon, you excavate the top 3 cards from your deck, add 1 Purrely Spoiler Trap, and then put the rest at the bottom. That is not a once per turn effect. So if you special summon Purrely or white cat, you activate its effect. Let's just say you link it off, then you monster reborn it back, you activate its effect. Let's just say you can activate its effect twice. you know, and then you can go, you understand the gist of it. It's infinite. This effect is infinite, right? Its secondary effect also has, it's not a once per turn, it is a soft once per turn. Okay, it says once per turn during your main phase, you can reveal one Purrely quick play spell. Okay, so any of the quick play spells, and then you can special summon one XYZ monster from your deck that mentions that quick play spell card and attach it to the reveal card that was summoned this way. So basically, you get an instant 2 material card, right? So let me give you guys an example. Purrely, right, and I have a Pretty Memory in hand, I would activate Purrely's effect, revealing Pretty Memory, okay, because it doesn't activate, it reveals from the hand, okay. By the way, side note, okay, let's just say that, right, I'm normal summoning Purrely, and I'm using Purrely's effect to XYZ summon, okay. You do not reveal any card in your hand, any quick play spell in your hand, until it resolves. So it has to resolve. You do not reveal it, right? So it's not like you activate it and then you reveal Pretty Memory and then your opponent responds, oh damn, he has Pretty Memory. Nope, because assuming that you activate Purrely, you have to use its effect to XYZ summon. You can't just call it and bluff it. That's not the way it works. Okay, so it has to resolve. Okay, so you activate effect, you know, to XYZ, and your opponent is like, okay, which one are you XYZing to? You do not state anything. You have to state, does it resolve? And if it resolves, then you reveal the card, and then you XYZ summon into the specific card that you are trying to XYZ summon into. Okay, so please keep that in mind. I see a lot of players make that mistake. I made that mistake very much when I was just picking up the deck. So please don't make that mistake, okay? So Purrely, the white cat, is probably, in my opinion, the most important one. This card is the best card for your grind game. It is your best card to keep searching your engine. It is your consistency card. These are 3 things and more that this card does. If you run 3 Purrely, respect, okay? There's no problem with running 3 Purrely. I would love to run 3 Purrely to the point that I have been back and forth with Called by the Grave or Monster Reborn. I'll talk about my own deck in a few. Okay, but keep in mind, Monster Reborn target Purrely is not a once per turn, so I can link it off into like an anima, suck something up, and then Monster Reborn it back, and then use its effect to try to hit. Okay, it's not a once per turn. I feel comfortable with 2, and not only that, the trap card Purrely Yeep, this is a good place to talk about it since there's only one good trap in Purrely, is Purrely Yeep. Now, Purrely Yeep, I'm not going to talk about the main effect as at the moment, but I'm going to talk about the recycle effect. The recycle effect states that you can banish this card from your graveyard to target 3 Purrely monsters in the graveyard, okay? It could be from your extra deck or whatever, and shuffle them into the deck. So, pretty good to kind of recycle your resources, right? So if you need another beauty, another plump, you know, you need your white cat in rotation, or you need your black cat in rotation. So I think it's pretty good. The second main deck monster is, of course, Purrely, or the black cat. Now, this card, again, is a level 1. All of this cat's effects are a hard once per turn. It is the actual opposite of the white cat, Purrely. It's the actual opposite of it, okay? So, on normal or special, you get to add a Purrely card, except a quick play, meaning that you can add My Friend Purrely. You can add the field spell, Stray Street. You can add Purrely Yeep. Or, guess what? You can also add a Purrely or a Purrely. Okay, so you can literally add any card that is not a quick play spell. Now, ladies and gentlemen, very few times do I see people use Purrely's effect to get a Purrely, or to even get itself. Okay, there are certain plays, depending on your hand, where it's like, wow, okay, I have one push. Let's just say Purrely gets stopped, right? You know, for whatever the case may be. You know, I want to search like a follow-up, right? So, you know, you can totally search, you know, a Purrely or the Purrely Yeep. So this card's really good. It allows us to get into our better card, being My Friend Purrely. But we're about to talk about that in the Spell and Trap section of Purrely. So please keep that in mind. Those are the main deckable monsters. For sure, Purrely can be ran at 3. This card's fantastic. It is your grind engine. But a lot of people play it at 2. I know there was games today where I missed the 3rd one. But there's also some games where it's like I don't even need it, but I go through Purrely the most. This card is the bread and butter of the deck. Okay, so that is it for the main deckable monsters. Let's talk about the non-quick play spells at this point. Okay, so the non-quick play spells are My Friend Purrely, straight Purrely Street, and Purrely Yip. Let's talk about them. My Friend Purrely is arguably the best Purrely spell that you have. Okay, so it is a continuous spell. So you pay cost, which is 500 life points. Okay, reveal 3 Purrely cards. Now, these 3 Purrely cards could be spells, traps, or monsters. Okay, and your opponent then randomly picks one to your hand, and then you shuffle the rest back into your deck. That's the first effect. The second effect, which a lot of newer Purrely players do not seem to use as much, okay, and it's the most important effect in my opinion, right? Because a lot of people look at the Rhoda effect and they zero in on that. The secondary effect is probably the most important one. It states that if a face-up Purrely XYZ monster you control leaves the field because of an opponent's card, that means Kaiju, Dark Hole, I don't know, Raigeki, I already said Kaiju, you know, something. If they just leaves the field because of any opponent's card, you can add up to 3 Purrely quick play spells with different names from your graveyard to your hand. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a huge effect. Why? Because if you need that additional gas, you can just crash your Purrely, okay, your Purrely XYZ into one of your opponent's monsters, and then just add all your resource back and you're off to the races. Okay, let's go gambling. You know, now you have again, you can hit Purrely again to try to gamble into that extra quick play spell that you need to make that big mat Noir. Okay, so this is fantastic. This right here is where I genuinely miss the 3 Purrely, the white cat. Why? Because this is going to get me back all my quick play spells in the graveyard, right? Up to 3, assuming, right? So you need something in the deck to summon out, which is usually going to be Purrely, okay, to kind of rank up into it. So again, this is kind of where 3 Purrely is really, really good. You have to manage your resource very well if you're only playing 2, okay? The other non-quick play spell that Purrely has is the field spell, which is straight Purrely Street. We play 4 copies of this. I personally play 4 copies of this. This for sure can be dropped and just played 3 because it is very highly searchable with the Black Cat and of course with My Friend Purrely. And of course you can also hit any Purrely Speller Trap with the regular White Cat. So, straight Purrely Street. Straight Purrely Street is the field spell that states that your opponent cannot target Purrely monsters you control with card effects the turn that they are special summoned. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a fantastic effect for things like Effect Veiler, things like I think Mourner targets or something like that, Imperm, you know, any monster that targets your special summon Purrelys, you cannot. This is fantastic, and it's our safe haven. This was probably what let us play during you know, the Fire King format, because you know they have, I'm sorry, not the Fire King, the Snake Eye format and stuff like that, because Princess couldn't pop because you can't target. This is also really good into Desiree if your opponent has a Fiendsmith in Paradise in the graveyard. Well, it doesn't really matter because they can't target your Purrely. They would have to send another card. Okay, so that is the first effect. It's very good. The second effect, which is also very good, it states that if a face-up, once per turn, if a face-up Purrely XYZ leaves the field because of your opponent's card, again, just like my friend, okay, you special summon 1 level 1 Purrely monster from your deck or graveyard. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a mandatory effect. It has to be Chainlink 1. Okay, so Chainlink 1 has to be Purrely Street. It is mandatory. So you can special summon out a monster from your grave, a Purrely from your graveyard, or a Purrely from your deck. Again, it's just that thing to kind of give you that recursion and of course that extra gambling, you know, with the white cat. Okay, its third effect is also extremely good, that it says once per turn during the end phase. Okay, once per you draw a card and a negate, sometimes it has to be enough. It has to be enough, you understand? So, yeah. And of course, if you have it backed up with my friend Purrely, you want this card to leave the field, because then you get all your resources back and you get them on the clapback. Purrely will always win on the clapback, on the resource management war, for sure. This deck just needs like one turn to really set up. Okay, so that is it for the spells. Let's talk about the traps. Now, the non-quick play trap, of course, it's just a trap, is Purrely Yeep. I already talked very briefly about the first effect. I'm sorry, the second effect, that it recycles your Purrely monsters. The first effect is target one Purrely XYZ you control. Special summon from your extra deck one Purrely XYZ monster with a different rank by using that target as a material, but return it to the extra deck during the end phase of the next turn. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Try to remember, don't do soft cheating in that case. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people tend to use the little baby cats, right? And then they activate Purrely Yeep to go into the X Purrely Noir, which is the big cat. Guys, it works both ways. Okay, so if X Purrely Noir has, let's just say, one material, okay, and your opponent is threatening something, you can always go Purrely Yeep, okay, target Noir, and you can summon out any of your little cats as well. So if you need like an interruption, you can kind of go Plump, and if you have like a quick play spell set, you can go Pump and non-target banish one of your opponent's monsters until the end phase, or you can go Beauty for the effect negation. So keep in mind, it works both ways. It isn't just a way to get into Big Noir, it is a way for Big Noir to also kind of float around into something else. Okay, so that is it for the non-quick play spells. Okay, as you can tell, this is already going to be kind of a long video, and I'm not even halfway done. So let's talk about the actual engine of the deck, right? Our emergency teleports. We have 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 emergency teleports. Let's talk about them. So we have Pretty Memory, we have Happy Memory, Delicious, Sleepy. Okay, so I want to talk about the one card starters, the one cards that let you get into your engine without needing any card on the board, meaning that you can activate them during draw phase, standby phase, main phase, battle phase, main phase 2, and end phase. They don't require a card on the field, okay, because those are the cards that you actually want to see in hand, because they let you activate Purrely or White Cat and Black Cat during draw phase, which your opponent means that your opponent cannot Veiler, your opponent cannot Droll, which are cards that are seeing play nowadays. So, you know, depending on the hand, I usually take the gamble. Let's talk about Pretty Memory. Pretty Memory states that each player, okay, let's go back. Each quick play spell is an emergency teleport on resolution, meaning it has one primary effect. The primary effect of Pretty Memory means that each player gains 1,000 life points. Once, then if both players gain 1,000 life points, which is the resolution of the card, then you can apply the following effects. Discard one card from your hand and special summon one level 1 Purrely monster from your deck. This can get you your White Cat and or your Black Cat. Again, you usually want to use Pretty Memory during draw phase or standby phase because it does not require another card on the field, and it also lets you dodge things like Veiler and Drone Lockbird, which really hinders this deck. Now, every quick play spell also has a secondary effect that is given if it is attached to an XYZ Purrely monster. If it is attached to an XYZ Purrely monster. So, you have the initial effect, each player gains 1,000 life points. Then you have the E-Tele effect, which is discard one card, special summon one level 1 Purrely monster from your deck. Again, that's the E-Tele effect, okay? And then it has a secondary effect that if a Purrely monster, if this is under a Purrely XYZ monster, it gains this additional effect. Once per turn, you can send one other card you control to the graveyard to target one card your opponent controls and attach it to this card as a material. Ladies and gentlemen, they all have that emergency teleport, clause. Okay, discard one card, special summon to level 1. But then they also have an additional clause that if this is under a Purrely XYZ, then they get a certain type of effect. These quick play spells are not once per turn. I will repeat again. All of these quick play spells are not once per turn. The only thing that are once per turn, soft once per turn by the way, is the secondary effect that it is when they are attached as a material. Okay, what I mean by that. Let's just say there is a beauty that has a pretty memory under it. You can use beauty's effect because this gives it this effect. This gives beauty an additional effect. So beauty then technically has the effect negation and also has this effect to that card. That was something that kind of took me a while to get used to. So again, beauty with pretty under it. You set one card, you send it to target one of your opponent's cards and attach it to it as a material. Perfect. You then attach your opponent's card as a material. Let's just say that you want to overlay into a big Noir. Since this is another monster, it is completely brand new monster, and you have a pretty memory under it, you can then use that effect again. Why? Because pretty memory gives this whole new monster this additional effect that you can target one card your opponent controls and attach it to it as a material, which is fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, this is probably the best spot removal that this deck has, and it is why this deck is so good going second, because it is a form of removal that means that it does not touch your opponent's graveyard, while it still provides advantage to you by giving you an extra material for your Purrely XYZ that you can use in whatever way you see fit. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I said this is not a hard once per turn, it is a soft once per turn. What does this mean? Is that if I then have two pretty memories under X Purrely Noir, that means I can activate this effect that allows me to attach a card my opponent controls twice. If I have 3 Purrely memories under X Purrely Noir, I can activate it 3 times, and so on and so forth. And again, this does not necessarily have to be under X Purrely Noir. It can be under any Purrely, and it's not once per turn. So something that I like to do is Plump. Plump has an effect that lets me attach spell cards from the graveyard, from either player's graveyard, to it. So I usually suck up a pretty memory with its effect, and then I activate Plump's effect, sending Plump's effect. I activate Plump's effect to send one card I control to the graveyard, which then lets me attach one of my opponent's cards to it as a material, and then I can overlay it into a big cat, a big Noir, and use that same effect again. If I didn't make myself clear the first 3 times. Okay, so hopefully you guys understand how something like Pretty Memory works. It is one of the strongest spell cards that we have in our deck. The next spell card I want to talk about is Sleepy Memory. Sleepy Memory is the other spell card that does not require a card on the field, meaning that you can use it during draw phase and or standby phase. Okay, so it says that the next battle damage or effect damage you take this turn becomes 0. Honestly, I've never really used that effect. It's never really come up. I just kind of need it for the emergency teleport. Then it has what our Purrely quick play spells have. Discard one card to special summon one level 1 Purrely monster from your deck. Now, the XYZ effect states that once per turn during your opponent's standby phase, you can draw 1 card. So this is what you want to have. You want to have 2 of these in your under your, let's just say, Purrely XYZ, draw 2 cards, and then you want to activate Purrely Yeep into your little Purrely, meaning let's just say that you have a Noir, a little Noir. You activate Purrely Yeep, you already drew your 2 cards, and then go into the big Noir. Now it's still standby phase, and remember this is a soft once per turn, so then you draw an additional 2 cards because it is a brand new monster. So in total you have drawn 4 cards. Now you can tell why this card would have been broken in something of a hand trap format, or if this card was at 3, because you do that twice and you just drew 6 cards. So yeah, that was one of the reasons why everyone hated Purrely, because you just refilled your entire hand. And that's why Purrely is also very much known as a hand trap deck, because you can just draw into a bunch of hand traps during your opponent's turn, and what are they going to do looking under your towers and like with your new 6 cards in your hand? So that was the whole thing. These are the only 2 cards in the deck, the only 2 quick play spells in the deck that does not require anything on the field. So use those wisely. Okay, I'm not saying to always do it during the draw phase or the standby phase, but really kind of look ahead before calling draw phase, standby, main. Really look forward, like ahead to what you want to do with your hand. Let's go to the other two Purrely spells. Now these Purrely spells require something on the field. Let's talk about Happy Memory. Happy Memory says that you have to choose one card on the field, okay? And until the end of the next turn, the first time it would be destroyed by a card effect, it is not destroyed. We usually tend to have a really good Unchained matchup and a Fire King matchup because they want to destroy their stuff, and this kind of allows you to protect your own stuff, but it also allows you to protect your opponent's stuff. So that's why Purrely, I think, is very versatile in that way. So keep in mind, this is on resolution, ladies and gentlemen. So you activate Happy Memory. You do not, this is non-targeting. You do not target any card. Your opponent is not going to tell you, okay, what's the target? No. Does the card resolve? Once the card resolves, you choose your card and then you discard your card to special summon that level 1 to get that emergency teleport effect. If that's what you so choose, if that is what you so choose to do with it. So please keep that in mind, okay? If they either negate it or the entire effect goes through. The XYZ effect that any XYZ monster has on this is this card can battle monsters a number of times of each battle phase up to the number of Happy Memory attached. So if you have 2 Happy Memories, it can attack twice 2 monsters. If you have 3, it can attack 3 monsters, you know, but only monsters. So it's not like you can attack directly like 3 times, right? This requires 1 card on the field. As you can say, choose 1 card on the field. So if you're going first and this is the only starter you have, you need to have something on the field. So what I usually like to do is, let's just say I have my friend Purrely, right? Ghost Ogre right now is seeing some play in the main deck. So I always, my friend Purrely, pay the 5. They usually Ghost Ogre. If not, they would Ash. But assuming in this scenario they Ghost Ogre, right? Ghost Ogre has to destroy. Okay, so then you can activate my friend Purrely. I'm sorry, Purrely Happy Memory in response to their Ghost Ogre. And then on resolution, protect my friend Purrely, and it resolves. Why? Because it's still on the field, and Ghost Ogre did nothing. You special summon out your whatever Purrely you need, and you reveal 3 cards that you need to keep going, or that you so choose. So, very, very good way of kind of baiting your opponent's hand trap out that way. This right here is public enemy number 1. Something I didn't talk about earlier is that this is public enemy number 1. Even if people don't know what Purrely does, they at least know my friend, and they want to stop this at all costs because it is what gives us our grind, okay, and more access to our engine. The second thing, the second quick play emergency teleport spell that we have that requires a card on the field is Delicious Memory, the other limited card next to Sleepy. So Delicious Memory states that on resolution of the card effect, you choose 1 monster on the field, non-target by the way, these are all non-target, and until the end of the next turn, it cannot be destroyed by battle. Okay, then on resolution, obviously you can discard 1 card, special summon, and then whatnot. Now, the secondary effect that it gives Purrely XYZ monster that is under this card, that this card is under, is it gains 300 attack and defense for each material attached to it. Now that doesn't seem like a very significant boost, but ladies and gentlemen, if let's just say you have a 5 mat Noir and you have a Delicious Memory, you just do the math. 5 times 300, that's 1500 stab boost that it's gaining, 1500 attack and 1500 defense. A lot of decks cannot get over that defense. Remember that Purrely Noir, if it has 5 or more materials under it, it becomes a towers. It becomes unaffected by your opponent's card effects, meaning that the only option that they have is to beat over it. So I would say the most important thing that you need is Delicious under your Noir. You need your Delicious under your Noir. After Delicious, then you can put in a Pretty and start suctioning up everything. Okay, so Happy Memory and Delicious are the 2 emergency teleport Purrely spells that require something on the field. So please keep that in mind. I don't want you guys just thinking, oh, I have this card in hand, activate. No, that's not the way it works. Okay, Delicious is at 2 for a reason, because you can go for OTKs with this deck quite easily. So if you have 2 Delicious under 1 XYZ, then it gets double the effect. So instead of 300, it actually gets 600 per material. And yes, it counts itself. Okay, it counts its own Delicious Memory, okay, because it is attached to it. So it can get very big very quickly. Usually by turn 2, if I started with Delicious, I usually attach the second Delicious and I just sit back and relax, because I know that no matter what my opponent does, they cannot do anything. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for all the quick play engine. So in total, we have a very good set of starters, right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 starters in the deck. So that sounds very, very good. I don't want to say they're true one card starters, except obviously the monsters, but the quick play spells obviously require that other card in hand. So yeah, that's why I don't like the hand trap build, because you are slowly depleting your hand and you're left with one card that if your opponent stops, pass, and then usually Purrely is not strong enough for that. Ladies and gentlemen, now let's talk about the damage step. If this card battled, you can add one Purrely card from your deck to your hand. Also, if this card has Happy Memory attached to it, you can have the attack of one face-up monster on the field. Non-target, by the way. This is all completely non-target. So it's a great way to have, you know, like beaters and stuff like that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is how I would get over like Dragoons half the time, right? Because if Dragoons has like, let's just say 4,000 life attack points, I just, you know, keep on trying to beat over it, right? I just Delicious onto my own happiness, and I keep crashing and crashing and crashing, and I activate its non-targeting halving, and so I just beat over it. It also has another effect that up to thrice per turn, meaning 3 times, when a Purrely quick play spell is activated, you can attach that card to this card as a material. Then you can return one spell or trap card your opponent controls to the hand. So what I mean by that is that if you have happiness on board and you activate a Pretty Memory, you want to go, you know, Pretty Memory Chainlink 1. If your opponent has a response, let's assume they don't. If your opponent does not have a response, then you Chainlink to Happiness. Now, Happiness sucks up Pretty, and then you resolve the effect. You resolve the effect because you technically already activated the effect to suck it up. And it says that when it sucks up a spell, a Purrely quick play spell, then you get to return one spell or trap card your opponent controls to the hand. Again, this is non-target. Happiness is really good because it is it's also one of the cards that allows you to search out your Purrely engine. This lets you add any Purrely card, meaning any monster, any spell, any trap. Ladies and gentlemen, usually the combo with Happiness is attack, search out another Happy Memory. Happy Memory then gives it another battle, another chance to do battle. So then you activate this, attach it to Happiness, do it again, attach it to Happiness, do it again 3 times, attach it to Happiness, do it again, and by the time you look at it, you have enough materials to make a big Noir. And again, it's just another way to make big Noir, or it's another way to add a My Friend Purrely, a Street, or any quick play or trap or monster. This card is fantastic. Okay, keep in mind, all the XYZ, all the Purrely XYZs, minus the big ones, all the little ones has the same effect that it says up to thrice per turn. So remember, you can only like if you activate a quick play spell, a Purrely quick play spell, you can then chain that little Purrely's effect to suck it up, and they usually tend to have effects, right? Let's go into Beauty. Beauty requires it states that once per turn you can target one effect monster your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of a turn. This is a quick effect and it has Purrely Pretty Memory. So every memory is corresponded to one Purrely XYZ. Happiness is corresponded to memory, Happy Memory. Pretty Memory is corresponded to Beauty. Sleepy Memory is corresponded to Noir. and delicious memory is coincided to plump. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason why is because obviously they're stated here in the XYZ. Okay, so beauty is a quick effect, negate. Okay, again, it has that up to thrice per turn effect that all little XYZs share. And then it has an additional effect if you do suck up a Purrely quick play spell that it lets you change the battle position of one monster your opponent controls. Again, this is non-target, okay? And if you suck it up, then this effect does not activate, it just happens because the activation is sucking up the actual Purrely quick play spell, okay? So don't let your opponent cheat you, and you don't cheat your opponent, okay? Then there is Baby Noir, okay? Baby Noir states that once per turn you can discard one card and target one card your opponent controls, or up to 2 cards if it has Purrely Sleepy Memory, and then return them to your opponent's hand. Now, this effect, the thrice effect, is if Purrely Quick Play spell is attached to this, you can set one Purrely trap directly from your deck. This is obviously going to be the Yeep. So this is basically how we get into our 5-mat Noir. Half the time, personally, you don't want to get it this way because remember, Purrely Yeep does have to shuffle back at the end of the end phase of the next end phase. So we try to avoid this, but it's not a bad way. Plus, you get the additional sleepy draw on your opponent's standby phase, so it's not bad. Plump is the other 2 of that I run. I see myself going into Plump more often than not. So Plump is what allows me to create those huge X-Purrely Noirs, which is once per turn you can attach 2 Spoiler Trap cards from either player's graveyard into Purrely Plump. So you can attach it either from your opponent's graveyard or from your own graveyard. And of course, this is a quick effect if this has Delicious Memory under it, which will 90% of the time always have it. It also has another effect that you can attach. If you attach a Purrely Quick Play spell, you can then banish one monster on the field until the end of the turn, non-targeting. So it's almost like an SP effect, an SP at home. Sometimes, if my opponent somehow negates or I'm not able to make a big Noir, I usually set another Quick Play spell and I pass turn, and hopefully that banish is enough to get me to end the turn. And of course, if it has Delicious Memory, it's gaining a lot of attack and defense from the Delicious, because this is a quick effect, so I can activate it during my opponent's turn as well to just suck up Spoiler Trap cards in the grave. Let's talk about the boss monster of the deck, Noir. You need to try your best to make this turn 0. You have to try your best. If not, you are already kind of on the back pedal of the duel. So this requires 2 level 7 monsters, but you can also XYZ this card using a rank 2 or lower monster you control with 5 materials. Okay, all the materials are transferred onto this card. So it has 1100 attack, 2800 defense, so it has a pretty big defense. Okay, the most important effect that this card has is this card is unaffected by your opponent's activated effects while it has 5 or more materials. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the goal. 5 or more materials. At least one of those materials, you want them to be a Delicious. Okay, because if you do that, then this gains quite a bit of attack and defense. Okay, and you just stall your opponent out until you suck up enough cards that this becomes literally a god card. Or your opponent just decides, I don't have an out to it. Like today, when I faced Tenpai, he was like, I do not have an out to this card. So he just, gave up. This also has another effect, a really, really good effect that I recommend using it with Heed. Okay, why? Because remember, you want your Noir to have as many materials as possible. With the Delicious, but it states you can detach 2 materials from this card, then target 1 card your opponent controls or in their graveyard, which is phenomenal, right? So that's the cost, and then place that card at the bottom of the deck. This is a quick effect if it has a level 1 Purrely monster attached to it, so either a Purrely white cat or a black cat. Ladies and gentlemen, these 2 cards are the last 2 cards that you will be removing for X-Purrely Noir, okay, because you have to keep that quick effect. Guys, the name of the game with this deck is to sit on a fat Noir, a 5 material Noir, hopefully with a Delicious under it, and just pass. You do not care what your opponent does. Even with just 1 Delicious, your opponent will probably end up passing turn to you. They'll set up, but you will at least have a tower-like monster that your opponent cannot do anything. So on your turn, hopefully if you have a delicious and a sleepy under, I'm sorry, a pretty memory under it, then you can just start sending your cards away and just absorbing more Noir pieces, and that's pretty much would be the game, you know. And you can hold out your opponent, because this is just going to get that when your opponent activates a card or effect, they have to discard one card, or that card is negated. So if you have Brow in hand, and let's just say you activate, I don't know, a quick play spell, you have to, and they chain this effect, you have to discard a card. Now that is my opponent making me discard a card. I will discard Brow. So if this card is discarded from your hand to the graveyard by an opponent's card, draw 2 cards instead. This card is the nuts. I faced a Raizio Mitsurugi deck today, and it was fantastic. Brow was MVP. So this card is extremely good. And like I said, remember, Purrely, you play with 5 cards in your hand, or 6 cards if you're going second. This just keeps your hand size going. So then for these emergency teleports that require a discard, is satisfied. Okay. That being said, this is why I also run Upstart Goblin. Now, you could totally run another supplemental engine that you can run, is the Foolish Burial Goods package. So you would run the 2 Foolish Burials, right? You can run the Metaphors Fusion and the Black Goat Laughs. So this right here, this is another really good package. It's another supplemental package. What this does is that Metaphors Fusion, even if you draw it, you can send it to the graveyard with a Purrely quick play spell, and then it's live in your graveyard. Not only that, Black Goat Laughs is also a very strong board breaker. I myself did not like this package when I played it. I much prefer the Upstart Goblin, so I can see my board breaker. I'm playing a 40 card deck with Upstart in the main. That makes it a 37 card deck. And of course, if I see my Brows and in tandem with my quick play spells, it just, the engine keeps going. But please keep in mind, that does mean that this deck does lose very hard to draw. If your hand isn't specifically laid out by the Egyptian god cards to deal with draw, you will probably end up losing. So you need a certain combination of cards to really beat draw. And beating it still doesn't feel too good, but as long as you can make a 5-mat Noir, I would say that you probably won. Okay, so this is another very good engine. But I opted to play the 3 Upstart Goblins just for that quicker result, and I really like it. I'm sorry, something that I did not talk about the Foolish Burial package as well is that this doesn't necessarily have to dump a Black Goat Laughs or a Metaphors Fusion. This can also dump any of your Purrely quick play spells. So let's just say you have Black Cat, okay? You can go Black Cat, use its effect, search out, right? And if you don't have any other quick play spells, you can always just Foolish Burial into any quick play spell that you need in the graveyard, because Black Cat has an effect which I completely forgot to go over, I apologize, but it also has a rank up effect which states that you can target 1 Purrely quick play spell in your graveyard, okay, and then special summon 1 XYZ monster that mentions that card by using this card as a material. So you can totally Foolish Burial into Delicious, and then Purrely, Black Purrely, target Delicious and XYZ into a Plump. That is fantastic. It's another way to get into your engine. So the Foolish Burial engine is the engine that was also being used with the gentleman that topped the YCS/regional. He was using Brows, and he was also using the Foolish Burial package, which I think is great. I just myself don't like it as a player. I don't know why I have a soft spot for Upstart Goblins. I really like it, and I just found myself just doing better with Upstart Goblin. Okay, another honorable mention I wanted to state. Okay, I already talked about Upstart Goblin. It makes the deck 37 cards, and again, allows you to draw into your board breakers, and just kind of keeps your hand size flowing for your discard fodder with your emergency teleports. So that's Dark World. That's Foolish. That is Upstart Goblin. I also want to talk about Kashtira. So Kashtira is another supplemental engine that a lot of people tend to run. You can decide to run, you can decide to run just Fenrir. 3 Fenrir is fantastic because it replaces itself, and it's also an interruption, and it's also almost like a board breaker going second as well. So you obviously activate this when you control no cards to special summon itself, and then you can add another Kashtira Fenrir from your deck to your hand. So there you go, you already have an extra discard fodder with a strong body on board. If your opponent decides to respond, you can chain Fenrir to banish something face down. This card is fantastic. I do run it in most builds, but I just, like I said, I feel like the spell cards are just harder to respond to in today's metagame. So yeah, Fenrir is fantastic. You don't necessarily, there's some people, like I said, like the Witness, that actually runs like a small package. Like they run this, and they run Primitive Planet, I think, right? The Kashtira field spell, which allows them to search either Fenrir or Unicorn. You can run like a kind of like a Kashtira engine as well. It's pretty good. It's not bad. I haven't for formats to fit in Fenrir. Even nowadays, like I could be like, okay, instead of the Brow, I can totally run Fenrir, but the thing is, Brow is so good against Mitsurugi, right? And Upstart Goblin just lets me get into other things that are not Fenrir, which are technically better, right? Dark Ruler no more, better than Fenrir, board breaking. Upstart lets me get into Lightning Storms to deal with backboard, back row, and you guys get this hint, right? So that's Fenrir. In my last profile, I also talked about Lava Golem. So I actually, as you guys can tell here, I completely removed Lava Golem from my deck. So I was very much hyping this card up, and this card did help me in a couple of games, but something I ended up finding out is this card sucks. And what I mean by that is that this card sucks because you have 4 main deck monsters that you can E-Tele out, which, yes, that's true, but Lava Golem locks you from normal summoning and setting that turn, and I found myself normal summoning quite a bit. I would normal summon Purrely quite often because to bait out any type of hand traps. Even if I drew a very good heavy engine hand and I drew a random white cat, I would always normal summon the white cat to try to see if my opponent decides to imperm, Veiler, or whatever the case may be. So just to kind of bait things out, and that way I have something on board for my happy memory or my delicious memory. So honestly, Lava Golem for me was very counterintuitive in that scenario, as well as I really want to try to fit in a 3rd white cat in here. If you are running 3 white cats, I highly recommend against Lava Golem, because now you're running 5 monsters, 5 normal summonable monsters in your deck that you want in your deck, but if you have them in your hand, that kind of becomes a problem if you do need to normal summon them out to get you into your engine. So Lava Golem is just not for me. There's Sphere Mode as well. Now Sphere Mode is okay. Sphere Mode is okay, but remember, it requires you to normal summon, which means that you cannot normal summon. It's almost like the same effect as Lava Golem, so keep that in mind. I want to talk very briefly about Shifter. So Shifter this is actually the first format where Shifter is not a complete and utter GG, because Malice is a deck. So Shifter, I feel like, unless you're playing against specific decks, Malice has one of the highest representation in the current metagame. So I just think that Shifter is just not worth it. Not even, I mean, you can argue in the side, but I just like my side the way it is. So Shifter, you can play under Shifter. Purrely can play under Shifter. Can they play under Shifter well, like most decks? Absolutely not. But like, if my opponent plays under Shifter and loses 90% of their engine, you will probably only lose like maybe 40% of your engine. Okay, but if you do opt to run Shifter, then E-Tellies are always going to get banished, but you need to get into your Purrely. Your Purrely is going to activate its effect, okay, to like, let's just say, hopefully mill you a delicious, and then you can activate Purrely's effect to rank up from your hand, okay, because remember, Purrely ranks up from the graveyard, and while White Cat ranks up from your hand. So that is usually how we play very well around Shifter. Not only that, we can empty out our graveyard by, you know, with Lily and as well as Plum. We can empty out our graveyard very well, and then we can just shift our opponent once we have our 5-man Noir. But I've never felt comfortable with Shifter in Purrely. I do see, you know, the reasoning behind Purrely. Shifter in Purrely, I just myself don't really like it. Ladies and gentlemen, this kind of concludes the whole Purrely quote-unquote discussion. Like I said, this was the deck that I managed to top today at locals, going X1 in a 5-round locals. My first matchup was against Tenpai. Second matchup was against Malice. I won. First one against Tenpai, I won. Obviously, Malice cannot do anything against a big Noir, and obviously Anima is really good into Cryptor. Okay, I'll talk a little bit more about the extra deck. Third match was against Mermiles. I went first, set up Big Noir, and everything he did didn't matter because they can't beat over it. Fourth match, that one was the one that I lost to Blue Eyes, Prime Eye Blue Eyes, and that's because I very much misplayed. That was a completely winnable game that I'm still beating myself over. And then the fifth game, I played against Mitsurugi Raizio, and obviously Brow carried that. Ladies and gentlemen, I do want to talk about the side deck. Some notable mentions on the side deck as well, or cards in general. D-Fissure. As you can tell, none of your monsters should really hit the graveyard. Purrely doesn't need to hit the graveyard because it gets them there as a material, as well as White Cat. The only cards that does get hindered by D-Fissure is Brow, but you have to kind of make a decision. Either you activate D-Fissure to avoid cards like Droll and Veiler, or you side out Brow, which isn't that bad. Usually, if I'm going D-Fissure, if I'm going first, I usually side in D-Fissures and I side in like Solemn Judgments. That's pretty much it. I want to talk about Monster Reborn as well. Monster Reborn is really good into the White Cat, and it's the only reason why I'm playing 2 White Cat, because if not, I'll play 3 White Cat and no Monster Reborn. So the idea behind this is that since Malice is the most represented card, they usually have Cryptor. As the end board. So I usually go normal summon White Cat, activates effect, link off White Cat into an Anima, into the zone that Cryptor points to, activate Anima's effect. They have to respond to Anima. It feels bad for them, but they have to respond to Anima. And then whatever they end up doing, I just Monster Reborn my White Cat, and again, I just gamble again, which increases my odds of hitting Purrely quick play spells, which increases my odds of having more engine to play with, and they've already down, a couple of interruptions because they were forced to for Anima. So I do want to talk about Anima. I think Anima is very good in this deck, and I think people should be running Anima in their extra deck. Sylvan Princess Spray. This card is just good to kind of keep your engine going. It's just really good when you need that one extra card and you're praying to the Egyptian god cards to kind of let you hit that Purrely quick play spell. And if you don't, and you send, like, let's just say something like a Brow, Brow effect does activate. So it lets you draw a card. So I think that's pretty cool. SP Little Knight, this is just generic, really good card. Usually if I have 2 Purrelys and a Big Noir, I usually end on the Big Noir and an SP Little Knight for maximum interruptions. And then obviously my Ultimate Slayer targets. This deck's extra deck has never really been too tight. Now it is, because obviously I have to fit the Ultimate Slayer targets, but it's really good, right? We have whatever synchro you want. There's a lot of really good synchros. I'm choosing Long here, but you can totally choose something, along Side Frame Gamma, or there's another really good one that I always forget the name, that lets you basically spell or trap card a monster your opponent controls if you discard one. Aggregator, this card's probably the best one against Raizio. It's basically a 2 card for 1, meaning you send Slayer, you bounce back Raizio Detonator, and then Aggregator you can go and target another face-up card to negate. Then our links against Malice, Tri-Brigade Arms. We send this for our opponent's Link. So then we send Garura, which allows us to draw. It's pretty good. Pretty good. Lightning Storm is just really good because I'm awful into back row. To be honest, this deck really struggles against back row unless you have Street, because most times most back row is targeting. So something like Imperm, unless it's Blue Eyes, which obviously they don't target with Majesty of the Blue Eyes White Dragon. This is the deck that I rocked for today's locals, and it did exceptionally well. I love this deck. It's really good. That I just kind of cooked on the side. I don't see myself ever playing this unless Sleepy comes to 3, maybe, and even then, but we'll see. So this is the hand trap version of the deck and what you're kind of looking for. So of course you're running your standard typical engine, which is 21 and then, or 20 or 21, I don't really know, 20 or 21, because I cut off the terraforming. And then you're running every hand trap imaginable, every popular hand trap imaginable, or hand trap that hurts you. So 3 Ash, 2 Ghost Ogres, because it is on some people's mains, and this in My Friend Purrely kind of sucks. And not only that, if they do Ghost Ogre something like your monsters, your White Cat or Black Cat, you don't get to XYZ. 2 Effect Veiler, 2 Nibiru, 2 Drone Lockbird, because this card really, it hurts, it genuinely hurts. 2 Imperm. So you might be asking, well, Whale, why 2 Imperm? That's like the other hand trap that you run at 3 with Ash Blossom, because they're so good, and this can also play as a board negate. So like if you draw it as your 6 card going second, you could just hard slam it down. So the reason why is because in a hand trap build, you want all the cards, all your 4 cards that you draw to resolve very well, to be usable, excuse me. So like, let's just say it's your opponent's turn, you get to draw 4 cards, right? You go Little Noir, and then Purrely Yeep into Big Noir, you draw 4 cards because you have 2 Sleepies under it, right? And you draw into an infinite it's a solid 3 card. You can run Fenrir in this place, you can run Brow if you want. You can also, again, I just really like Upstart Goblin, makes my deck 37 cards. And then the extra deck, since you're not running, obviously you make the side deck however you like. You can totally run Ultimate Slayer in the side deck, Book of Eclipse, Book of Moon, but I just wanted to kind of make this very quickly, so I ended up going for the standard build, meaning the old school build, which was Sprite, Nightingale. This is our Zeus line, basically attack directly, overlay into Downerd, make Zeus with like, I think like 4 materials. That's really good. And then I added a Sky Thunder, I'm sorry, a Sky Crisis. This is really good just because it's just really good against Raizio. So guys, that is a 1-hour video of Purrely. I know I missed a couple of stuff, and I do want to kind of keep going with this deck. I love this deck so much. I feel like it really brings out the best in me as a Yu-Gi-Oh player, and it makes me better, which is always such an exciting feeling when it's like, wow, I can't believe I made that. You know, like I beat that board, I broke that board, and my opponent's mad, and I live for that. So ladies and gentlemen, if you like this 1-hour video masterclass or whatever discussion, Purrely discussion, please leave a like, rate, comment. And again, I'm not the best Purrely player, but I will be sticking with this deck, so expect a couple of more Purrely content out there. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for everything. This is the Whale. Talk to you guys later.